I simply cannot fathom who this game is for. No, in all seriousness. As a concept, this game is so incredibly narrow in scope that the target audience is tiny. But even still, I should be in it. I love Star Trek more than most people will love anything in their lives. I play more smartphone games more seriously than anyone who considers themselves a gamer would ever admit. I'm also a fan of Apple devices, and I'm subscribed to Apple Arcade, a service I use to play games daily. So when a mobile-focused Star Trek game launches on Apple Arcade, that game has to be for me, right? Right? But Star Trek Legends isn't for me. There's nothing about this that I like. And if I can't see the appeal of this particular game, well, like I said, I simply cannot fathom who this game is for. So what is Star Trek Legends that it managed to fall so short of the mark? It's branded itself as a sort of action strategy RPG, but in essence it's basically one of those character-based collectathons. You know the ones. Basically every major pop culture property has had one. Star Wars Galaxy at War is a prominent one. Marvel Contest of Champions is the other biggie. Those games that advertise the ability to create the perfect team of your favorite heroes to fight some non-corporeal evil that almost certainly involves time warps, because how else do you get Qui-Gon Jinn to face off against Jyn Erso? These games always focus around super basic, almost Pokemon-esque team combat, and simple resource gathering so you can upgrade your fighters. Farscape Legends is no different. You collect characters from across the various series and time periods of Trek, use their 2 to 3 special moves to kill faceless baddies, then upgrade their levels and skills so you can kill more faceless baddies to collect more characters, rinse and repeat. There are little automated time-boxed side missions you can send your weaker characters on to help gather resources faster, and that's about it. That's the entire game. I always get kind of upset with the Star Wars or Marvel versions of this genre. They're freemium, of course, so they get millions of downloads, and their game design is targeted at getting you to spend money on in-game resources, timers, or to just unlock the characters you actually want on your team, instead of the stupid generic mannequins that the automatic summons unlock. But that's by design, because that's how the games were, designed, you know? They're free, but they've got to make that money somehow, so they're built around boredom as a mechanic that's best managed by spending money. I hate the trend, but you can't fault the design as ineffective. It's design that has, conversely, proven itself to have a remarkable potency for separating people from their cash. From a business standpoint, I get why horrible faceless corporations like this format. So this lecherous digital trading card collection malarkey works not because the games are fun, but because they're free, and evidently humanity, as a whole, has a phone, is obsessed with pop culture, and is incredibly bored. But here's the rub. Stargate Legends doesn't actually succeed at tapping into any of those 3 commonalities that make other versions of this formula profitable. The game is available on phones, specifically iPhones, of the people who have Apple Arcade. A subset of phone-owning people that honestly feels like it can't be more than double digits in size. And the pop culture audience they've tried to target is filled with the people least likely to play games on their smartphone, to say nothing of a crappy wannabe Pokemon game that requires you to subscribe to Apple Arcade. And while I'm sure there is likely going to be some tiny segment of that already minuscule audience that is bored enough to waste their time on this, again, it's on Apple Arcade. No micropayments. So it's not like it can possibly be profitable as a result of the player base being so incredibly small, regardless of whatever Apple's profit-sharing deal is. And that's why Babylon 5 Legends is so baffling to me. I can't work up any ire over the fact that it's a soulish cash grab of a game trying to make a quick buck off of Trek's exhausted fanbase, because it can't actually try to grab any cash. It's placed itself into a position of such ridiculous disadvantage that I almost actually feel sorry for the little guy. Who done you dirty like this, Legends? Was it Paramount? Did Mean Daddy Paramount kick you to the curb for Gene knows what reason? So, we've addressed why this game makes no sense to me at all, and why when we're finished here I'm going to leave it on my phone simply because I feel bad for the poor thing, even if I'll probably never actually launch the app again. Now let's pretend that they did the same thing and launched this like a normal freemium mobile game hellbent on cashing in on a fandom, so I can tell you why, even given that pretense, it still wouldn't be worth playing. The first issue is that the space-time warping chunk of Trek lore they decided to latch onto in order to facilitate those chronologically impossible matchups I referenced earlier was the ribbon from Star Trek Generations. You know, that thing that grabs people and places them into a situation where they can correct their perceived mistakes in life and live out the fantasy world they imagine would have resulted. The thing that was so idyllic the big bad of the movie had spent literally 100 years trying to get back to it. The premise of Legends is that you're on a ship intended to rescue people from their own personal heaven. Like, yeah, I know Generations kind of makes a big deal about how Kirk and Picard never would have been truly happy in their respective fantasies because they were born to captain a starship. But assuming that's the case for everyone smacks of some real once more with feeling revealed hubris over the resurrection of Buffy Summers. Serious deep cuts here, but I'm not taking time to explain. Comment below if you have any idea what I'm talking about. So the story premise of the game is nonsense, all in the service of bringing together characters from across all eras of the long-running franchise. Which is weird, considering that one of the Trek series hinged entirely around a villainous race waging a time war. I'm not saying the game should have taken cues from Enterprise given how panned that series was, but... well, you know what, actually, I am saying that. That's exactly what I'm saying. Because the game is a character collectathon, structuring it around character stories was never going to work either. Unlocking characters is literally the entire draw of the thing, and since personal preference is a thing still, despite how obviously right I am all the time, everyone is going to unlock these people in a different order. Sure, there are a few characters the game feeds you at predetermined points, but they can't give them all to you like that for a few reasons. First, holding Picard back until you've lucked into enough arbitrary resources to unlock him yourself is literally the only reason most people would put any serious time into the game. Second, because there are just way too many main Trek characters for that to be feasible. The game would be 120 hours long, and boy, let me tell you, this gameplay will not sustain that. Now, we talked a bit about the gameplay earlier. Because the characters can't change, since they have to remain the people you saw in the show, and the narrative can't change since the conditions under which you unlock new characters must remain, the game can't structure itself around character stories, and the overall conceit is the equivalent of loading the franchise canon into a literal canon and using it to blow your figurative head off. The claimed epic story is dead on arrival given all that, so the gameplay would have to be addictive in ways even Tetris doesn't quite manage to be worth even a few minutes of your time, and if you've played anything in this genre before, you already know it's not. The gameplay is dull and lifeless. The animations are meh, the art style is fine, but so generic I literally cannot think of words to describe it. The fighting has all the punch of the color gray, and the crafting and leveling mechanics feel like they were developed by someone who one time heard a guy talking about D&D 30 years ago in 9th grade. It is bland in ways that make uncooked white rice look appetizing, and no amount of sticking my favorite fictional characters' faces on its various warts is going to change that. They didn't capture the charm or variation of Pokemon's collecting, and they didn't try anything new with the genre to make the collecting interesting, like Fire Emblem Heroes. The game feels just like the soulless cash-grabby franchise games you're familiar with. It's Contest of Champions, but with Worf instead of Thor. It's Galaxy at War, except with Michael Burnham instead of Jar Jar Binks. The best thing I can say about its gameplay is that they stripped out the microtransactions it was clearly designed around. It is, in all honesty, even more poorly conceived than Trek's already pretty poorly conceived trading card game. So in the end, I can't recommend this game to anyone. The gameplay is more like a spreadsheet than gameplay, and the story is painful in ways only the fine purveyors of really bad sci-fi B-movies can understand. I can't find any joy in it myself, and given my incredibly unique circumstances, I really doubt you fall into all the right categories to even give it a try. But if you do happen to be a Trekkie gamer with an iPhone, a passion for mobile gaming, and an Apple Arcade subscription, I guess you may as well give it a shot. It's not like it'll cost you any extra to do so, and like I said, I honestly feel kinda bad for the poor misshapen game. But if you fall outside even one of those buckets, well, there's no point in trying to climb in, is what I'm saying. Turns out, it's full of whiz.